Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Offer on the Table. I'm John, and alongside me is Adam. How you doing, Adam?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing fine myself. Let's get this show on the road. So here's the rundown of how this show's going to work. Every episode, we have a few topics that are current in the NBA, and those will be our topics of discussion. So without further ado, let's introduce our topics for the first ever episode of Offer on the Table. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, so the first up on our agenda today are the Kawhi trade rumors. Where's he going to land? And we'll talk about how his situation compares to other people in his same situation, other superstars. After that, we'll talk about LeBron's free agency. Is he staying or is he going to be leave Bron? And after that, Paul George. Where is he going? Kind of the same situation as LeBron James, wouldn't you think? And he's is he staying in OKC or is he leaving maybe to team up with LeBron in LA? All of that on this episode of Offer on the Table. All right, let's get it started. So let's start with Kawhi. How does he compare to other superstars in terms of how he's dealing with this whole situation, you think?
Honestly, I think he's doing a horrible job. I got a lot of respect for Kawhi Leonard, and I think he's a crazy good player. But the way he's handling this is just awful. I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself, the Spurs, and the rest of the NBA, whether they're willing to pay him or not, which I don't really understand with.
That's what he wants to do. He wants to put some pressure on everybody, don't you think?
Yeah, but I think there's a limit to that, too, because you're talking about a guy who played, 9 games last year?
Yeah.
Like, how much pressure are you going to put when you have no stats to back you up?
That's true. And, he's if he's making a big deal out of all this, it kind of makes you think, what do other teams do? Do other teams want this personality on their team?
Yeah, I think not only you worried about that, but Kawhi Leonard, it's kind of like Rodney Hood in the playoffs with the Cavs, They said, we want you to play. He said no, except Kawhi's was much more dramatic because you've got Kawhi who literally just said no for an entire season rather than a game.
I mean, Rodney Hood and Kawhi Leonard are not on the same level, but yeah, I guess I understand what you're saying. So, I mean,
yeah.
What were you going to say?
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to follow this up with, you think he's handled the situation poorly. I mean, I think so. He didn't have to make such a big deal about, not wanting to play. And, that's so, it's so weird to hear an NBA superstar not wanting to get minutes, not wanting to play. He just didn't want to play, even though he was cleared to play. I mean, what is this? Do you think he's considers himself an NBA superstar? Do you think what is going on with him?
I don't know how much he considers himself a superstar, but I know the league did. I mean, you look at his 2017 season before this past one, 25.5 a game. He's getting 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting almost 50% from the field, almost 40% from 3, and almost 90% from the free throw line. Those are some high-quality stats. And his team's, second in the Western Conference behind the Warriors.
If I'm not mistaken...
How could you just disregard all of that,
If I'm not mistaken, he was top 3 in MVP voting, right, in 2017?
Yeah. Top 3 both 2016 and 17, I think.
But with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, not bad company to be with in the MVP, in the league.
Yeah.
And so, do you think this was bad timing? In terms of his career and how the Spurs are evolving. Greg Popovich is probably going to retire soon. Do you think that this whole situation happened at the wrong time?
Yes. I think also Kawhi almost used this past season as his excuse to get out of San Antonio. I don't know what the situation was like before that. I mean, everything with Kawhi Leonard is in his favor if he were to stay with San Antonio. But he seems to be on his way out, which is crazy. Because you look at the stats, Kawhi Leonard with the Spurs got second in the conference in 2016, second in the conference in 2017, and then Kawhi doesn't play. They still make the playoffs.
They were up by 20 against the Warriors when he got injured. So like they were
Exactly.
probably going to go to Game 6 against the Warriors, maybe even make the finals.
I don't know. But not only that, like people say, oh, it's the NBA is a business. Okay, well, if you think about it from the business end, Kawhi Leonard's a superstar. He deserves to be paid like one. He stays with the Spurs. Sorry, he gets 219 million. He gets traded. He gets 188 million, which is a 31 million dollar loss. And if he just opts out next year because he's not allowed to this year, that's 139 million dollars, which is and it's an 80 million dollar loss. So the money doesn't work. His team is good. Clearly, he's got a good relationship with Greg Popovich because he stayed for this long. So I just don't understand what his motivation to leave is, because his excuses were just kind of, well, excuses. There really wasn't any foundational basis behind it.
But
I just don't
when
know.
I heard about this whole situation, I thought maybe it was Kawhi not wanting to injure his future salary. Like I don't. Maybe he was not. He didn't want to. If he didn't feel like he was comfortable playing, I don't think he wanted to diminish his chances of getting a decent salary, even though he was going to get paid because you're Kawhi Leonard. But still, I didn't think he wanted to, slip away with how much money he could get in another season. Maybe he was going to leave the Spurs anyway. Maybe he's just using the injury as an excuse to wanting to leave.
Yeah, I heard that also. Like, I mean, this was clearly just, it was a leak, right? It was Kawhi over any social media, over the TV, on the news, anything and everything was Kawhi Leonard wants to leave. But I heard that, during this leak, Kawhi Leonard never before the leak had he ever gone to the Spurs and requested a trade or talked to them that he was unhappy. So I mean, clearly he's unhappy, right? He doesn't want to play, but I think there's a definite line between being unhappy and not wanting to play, and being unhappy and requesting to leave. Because you can kind of blame the not playing on the injury, but the leaving, that's a big step in my book. So what do you think sparked that? Because it's got to be something else other than the injury. I know we're speculating here, but I don't understand how one injury could really affect your
He
relationship
doesn't
with your
like San
team.
Antonio. I think he's seeing all these other superstars going around the league, going to places that they actually want to go, and I think maybe he's just been tired of losing in the Western Conference so many times and getting so close to maybe a finals round. He did get a championship in 2014, but that was before the Warriors era. So I think he wants to go where I think he's just going to go where he wants to go.
Yeah,
Where he legit wants to
I
play.
I I don't understand though, because I really think that he could win a championship in San Antonio. I mean, you get a couple more pieces, maybe something in the draft. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense for him to leave. I don't
Do you
think.
think his injury will turn out to be kind of like an Isaiah Thomas kind of situation where he's never actually going to get back to himself?
No, because I think Isaiah Thomas really rushed himself back from the injury and perhaps could have made it worse. And if anything, Kawhi made sure his injury
But
was
he
healed.
he took it to further measures than he probably should have.
He took his sweet time. So I really, in terms of injury affecting him, I don't think it will. He's had a steady increase in his ability, since he's gotten to the league. Every year his stats
Yeah,
are
obviously.
getting better. But we'll see what happens next year. But I don't think it's a good idea for him to leave San Antonio. I think Greg Popovich really is the face of this franchise from a coaching and organizational standpoint. So if you're Kawhi Leonard, you're unhappy. I think what you got to do, you got to sit down, talk to Popovich, maybe bring in Aldridge, because I don't know if you remember last year, Aldridge had his shtick where he wanted to leave too. He sat down with Popovich, they talked it out. Aldridge came back, and basically on the shoulders of LaMarcus Aldridge did the Spurs make the playoffs this year. So I think you put Kawhi in a room with Aldridge and Popovich, you have them talk it out and figure out what's going on. and hopefully you convince him to stay, because 5 championships Greg Popovich has. It's a good team, a lot of really talented role players that can make the playoffs on a consistent basis. The Spurs haven't
Coach
missed the
Pop.
playoffs in like 20-something years.
It's Coach Pop, dude.
That's consistency in an NBA franchise. So
And okay, now
I don't
that
know.
let's say he is leaving, right? I mean, Kawhi Leonard, I don't think would be healthy for the Spurs to keep a player that doesn't even want to play there. So who do you think has the best shot at landing Kawhi? I mean, who do you think? Maybe the Suns. The Suns. There was speculation that they might want to trade their first pick, the first pick in the draft for Kawhi Leonard. But I think, in my opinion, that's some bull, because
I,
Kawhi's gonna leave after a year. Who wants to play in Phoenix? The last person to be relevant in Phoenix was Steve Nash. So, I mean, do you just give up your future like that if you're the Phoenix Suns?
I don't think you do. But I also think the Suns have a history of keeping their draft picks. So I think they're in a really good position. There's a lot of young talent in this draft. I think that they really could make a, quote, splash with their pick, right? I mean, you've already basically set a foundation the last couple of years. You've got Devin Booker, who could be a superstar. He already had 70 in a game, which is the most since Kobe. They've got Josh Jackson, who's this athletic young forward who can slash. Shot's not really there, but he's talented defensively. I think he's got a lot to add. A couple years, he'll get better too. I think that the Suns, kind of in the shadows, are slowly putting together what could be a really good team, but they just need a couple more pieces. And I think they're looking, almost as the Warriors have in the past, they're looking to do that in the draft. So I don't really see them shooting for Kawhi in that sense. I think their best bet would not be a trade. It would rather be in free agency. And frankly, I don't think that, Kawhi would choose to go to Phoenix.
I mean, I
What do you see? So, the rumors Kawhi wants to go to LA. Do you see a trade happening between the Lakers and the Spurs, or do you think it's more of a free agency situation?
I don't think. I think the Lakers. What if the Lakers are about a free agency situation or a trade? You mean?
So let's say Kawhi is destined to go to the Lakers. You think it happens via trade or via free agency?
I think it's in the Spurs or it's in the Lakers' favors to sign him, not to trade him, because the whole point is adding, like, I'm bringing LeBron in for a second here. The whole point is to add LeBron to that team. Maybe give up a few assets. I don't know if you need the cap, you need the money, right? But I think if the Lakers trade for Kawhi, they've just lost. Getting LeBron doesn't make sense anymore because that team just doesn't work. I don't think the team would be good enough to actually compete.
Do you think again, we're speculating here. Let's say the Lakers somehow land Kawhi and LeBron. Do you think that, one, do you think that chemistry works? Two, do you think that team has enough firepower to take down the Lakers or to take down the Warriors?
Well, taking down the Lakers, that's an interesting task. I don't think it would be fun to see LeBron and Kawhi on the same team. I don't see it, just because they're two totally different people. I think it wouldn't work because LeBron always has the ball, and I feel like Kawhi would lose his role. Like, lose his, like he's been playing in San Antonio like his whole career, and he's been he's been their best player, obviously. And I mean, I feel like he would kind of lose his mentality if he's playing alongside LeBron. He just doesn't seem like that type of person. I mean, he seems quiet, but maybe now he isn't as much.
Before we move on from Kawhi, I gotta say, I had a lot of respect for Kawhi Leonard. I think he was a great player, and he really is a superstar in this league. But and almost Tim Duncan-esque, right? You stay on the Spurs, you're gonna win a championship with Popovich, you're gonna create this dominant franchise, and this whole trade rumors and